Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, you are going to see me transform a very old, worn out Ethan Allen dresser. This bad boy was heavy, as you can see with us struggling it down the stairs. So the first thing I did was I used a heavy duty degreaser on the whole entire dresser. I sprayed everything down. This brand I used was Method. It's more of a natural brand, but I personally didn't like it because it made like everything kind of sticky, so I don't really recommend it. I didn't use it again. And then I just wiped everything down with just a normal rag and kind of really just got all the dirt and grime off of the entire dresser. And man, let me tell you, it needed a good wipe down. Look at all of that gross dirt and dust on that rag. Ew. After everything was dry, I took my orbital sander with a 120 grit sandpaper and I sanded down the top quarter of the dresser. I did a dipped look with this, so the bottom portion is going to be painted and the top was stained. So the drawers and the sides weren't too bad to sand down, but the top just was pretty overwhelming, so I opted for some stripper for the rest of it. As you can see, I started to sand and I gave up. The top coat on this was very thick, super thick, so I used some latex gloves and I just spread it over the entire thing. It was a nice warm day, so I didn't have to use any plastic wrap over it. And then my camera died, so I didn't get to show taking the stripper off, but I just used a scraper, just scraped it off like I normally do, and then I went over with a 120 and finished sanding the rest. I scuff sanded with a 120 on the rest of the dresser that I was going to be painting. That's all I needed was a 120 grit scuff sand. And then as you can see here, I went through with a rag and some more cleaner and just cleaned the entire piece to get all of that sandpaper or sand dust off. So next, as you can see in this clip, I am prepping the sides for my painter's tape. The top, I know I said earlier in the video that I was going to be staining, so I'm actually going to be doing a paint wash, which kind of gets you the same end result. I am measuring out exactly where I was going to be putting my painter's tape. I wanted to have it lined up perfectly throughout the whole side of the dresser. I didn't want it like diagonal and messed up, so I just measured out and I put the tape exactly across. I wanted to line it up with the front of the dresser, as you can see where I sanded right under where the drawers lined up, the top 3 drawers. And then I just repeated the whole process on the other side of the dresser, once again just measuring exactly where I wanted it and then putting on my painter's tape. After that was all prepped, then I got my paint wash ready. So I just took some water in a cup and I poured a little bit of paint in it. I used Lily Moon's, I think it was called Gilly Flower, Gilly Water, I think it was Gilly Flower. And I did a 1-to-3 ratio, 1-to-4 ratio. I honestly just put a bunch of water and then just did a little bit of paint. And then I mixed it up really well so it was evenly distributed. And then what I did was I took a rag and I put it over the parts where I wanted to do the paint wash. So I opted for a pinkish beigeish color because I did not like how the raw wood looked. The paint I used was a Duck Egg Blue by Annie Sloan, and with how yellow the wood was, I just really didn't think it would go good together. So I opted for a pinkish beigeish tone to really neutralize the color of the wood, which I'm so happy I did. I feel like it just absolutely went beautiful with the color of the paint I used. So here I'm applying it in sections and then I go back over, kind of just sliding the rag over the entire dresser so it kind of evens out. Typically I use a brush and then I'll put a rag over it, but with this I just ended up doing a rag for the whole thing. As you can see here, I took my painter's tape off and then I reapplied it on that line just to get it prepped for priming. So the next thing I did was get my primer prepped for priming. I personally prefer the Bin Shellac primer. I like using shellac because it blocks all the bleed through from the tannins and the stain and the knots and everything with the wood. So I applied it with a foam roller. I really like how it's applied with the roller. I get a very hard foam roller, so there's not a bunch of there's not a bunch of texture in it. So I just applied my primer over everywhere I was gonna paint. Like I said, I'm going for a dipped look, so just the bottom portion of the dresser and the bottom 6 drawers. I went through, I think, with 2 coats of primer. I typically only need to do 2 coats of primer on my pieces. So yeah. So after my primer was all dry and set, then I went through with a 220 grit sandpaper and I just lightly sanded over everything I primed to get any bumps or uneven surfaces out. I highly recommend this step through every layer of primer and paint you do. So then I took my Annie Sloan chalk paint in Duck Egg Blue. This was the first time I've ever used Annie Sloan's paint. I absolutely love it. I love the coverage. I love how thick it is. I love everything about it. The colors are beautiful. I don't have many paint options where I live. I'm in Minnesota where it's cold like 8 months out of the year, and I was able to get this locally, which was super nice. So as you can see here, I also used a foam roller to apply most of this. I ended up doing 3 coats, and then I went through with a small like painter's brush, and I just touched up a couple places, mostly on the bottom where I couldn't reach with the foam roller. I'm sure if I applied a brush I would only need 2. The foam roller, it's definitely like thinner layers, but I just really liked how it applied with this. Typically I use a brush, but with this one, the foam roller it worked really well with how many drawers there were. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually reapplying the tape. I cannot prime up to my tape because the primer bleeds through underneath. I have now learned that a lot of people will put like poly over the painter's tape to seal it, and it works like super well with that. So I'm definitely going to be trying that hack next time. But basically what I do is I'll put the tape and then I will prime up to the tape, take the tape off, put it just a little bit above the line, and as you can see here, I add to it. I definitely smooth out the line with the 220 grit before I go above it like this, so there's not really like any texture, if that makes sense. So it worked out really, really well for me. So the next thing I did was I went through with Minwax natural wax, and I just took a rag and I applied that all over the top part where I had my raw wood and paint wash. I personally love using wax. I love how easy it is to apply, how well it seals it, all of that. So you just apply it with a rag and then you buff it out. And then I went through with Annie Sloan's clear wax for where I painted. I went through my camera. I could not find the video of me putting the hardware on. I don't know what happened, but I ordered just plain gold hardware from Amazon, as you can see here, and I just honestly just like put it on where the old holes were. I felt like the gold really suited the dresser. And then in this video you can see me and my cousin just trying to figure out how to stage. I always like over criticize my work and always overthink, and it takes me forever to stage my pieces. But this is the before dresser. As you can see here, it was in horrible shape. And then here's what the after looks like. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe.